Yo, today we're here to discuss so many transfers. The season ended last week. Some people are excited, some people are nervous, some people think we're gonna fail, but we're gonna have a long transfer window coming. So many random links with random different players. Don't believe everything you see. Yeah, and before we start, I'm gonna introduce everybody. Karan,
What's up, guys? It's Karen here. Looking forward to this. It's going to be a good long conversation. A lot of different links, a lot of different people. Let's get it.
Z,
Hi everyone. I think this was one of my most awaited ones. Let's see what comes out of it. So let's go.
George,
Hey lads, how you doing? Good. I'm excited for the impending debate. I'm ready.
for the second time, Nom.
Hey guys, it's the old guy here. I'm going to be looking forward to this one. This should be interesting. So yeah, let's do it.
For the first time, Zico.
Hello, first time. Nervous, but excited at the same time.
And last but not least, for the first time, Carys.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for inviting me to be a guest on here and hopefully have a good discussion.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to ask everybody what positions you think we need and what formation you think we're going to go into next season. Who wants to start?
I mean, I'm the contrarian here, aren't I? If we're talking about what I want us to play, I love a 4-3-3, and I think we will be playing 4-3-3 next season. I think in build-up we'll start to play more of a 3-2-5 going forward and a 4-4-2 low block going back, or maybe even a mid block going back. So, in terms of positions needed to fill that out, I think most crucially is in the middle, especially if the links that we're going to discuss later are true, and some of the players that we're thinking are going to leave are going. Definitely at least 2 8s. A 6, a 6 and an 8 to 10. That would be in the midfield, and then going forward, probably a left wing to let Martinelli come through, and a right back as well as a backup left back for Kieran Tierney. We also need, if Leno goes, we need a goalkeeper as well, maybe even 2 goalkeepers. So a lot of positions, a lot of work to do, and let's see what we do.
Okay. George, what do you want to see?
Well, I think we need ball-carrying progressors in every third of the pitch. I've said this before, so the primary positions that we're looking at is a central anchor. We're looking at a right back, and we're looking at an attacking midfielder. I prefer the creative left space because I think that's where the major portion of our lack of creativity lies. I think I've talked a lot about maybe pseudo 10s and what I'd like to see kind of in a philosophy going forward. And I think we saw kind of the fruit of that much more in the Leeds dynamic when we saw it earlier in the season. That was kind of the first time that my dream became a reality in a sense. And so it doesn't surprise me that I see Smith Rowe on the left wing, but ultimately I see him as a long-term future down the middle. And so in order to facilitate that, I need creativity on the left. In terms of an overall setup, I think we're going to stick with the same three in the back of build-up. Overarching, it's going to be a 2-3-5, and then we're going to have a defense of a 4-4-2. So I don't really like these debates of a 3-man midfield or not, because really it's a simple change in the midfield. As a coach, it's really a 1-2 or a 2-1. I have my preference towards a pivot. I felt that we we're going to go for a pivot, especially in who we're recruiting and our links. But also just logically, the specificity of a 4-3-3, it's insane the amount of work that needs to be done in order to get there. So if we're under the assumption that we're operating on a reduced budget, to get to that specificity, it seems a little unrealistic. So That's kind of my overarching view.
Carys, what positions do you want us to buy?
The thing is that if I'm being really honest, the whole team needs surgery. But if we're talking about positions, we need a backup left back for Kieran Tierney because the thing with him is that the way he plays is very all action. So of course he might take a few knocks here and there. In my opinion, we need a centre back to compete with Saliba. I don't think, as much as I love him and I think he's done well at Nice, I do think let's say if he gets injured, the next available person would be Rob Holding. I don't really trust him in defence at all, especially to progress play and stuff. So we need somebody to compete with Saliba. I'd get a right back for sure because you know how important they are in our build up. You've seen with Callum Chambers how well he's done, but he's not the most athletic person there. So we need somebody that can either hold the width or invert, depending on what Arteta asks. We need a sentiment as it's been well documented because Shaka could be leaving soon. We need a more dominant and more assertive number 10 who possibly can also play out wide as well because of tactical flexibility is something that is very key. And then depending on if Lacazette leaves, which I sincerely hope he does, we need a centre forward that can kind of link play around them and score as well.
Okay. Z, what do you want to see us sign this summer?
Yeah, sure. I mean, to be fair, I've just tried to look at the team in probably from a broad perspective, and I'm looking at that team, and I'm thinking, where does that team actually need the most surgery in? And for me, I think it's glaringly obvious. It's that midfield. That midfield, it cannot sustain pressure. I think it's probably one of the least athletic midfields in the league. And for me, we need to get at least one or two profiles in that can go two ways from defense to attack. And I think the profiles that we've been looking at, for example, Sander Berg, we've been looking at someone like Bissouma. There's been outside links with Camavinga. Those are the kind of profiles that we need in that midfield. And for me, I'd forget everything else. We just need surgery there. And then, to add, icing on the cake, we could obviously add a creative profile on the left. I also think we need a right back. But, we have someone like Callum Chambers in place right now, which, I think is doing a very decent job. And essentially, if we do get a right back, I would want someone in the caliber of Hakimi, even back to someone that can elevate that right side. But for now, I think it's that midfield that needs that major surgery. And then once that midfield gets that major surgery, we can focus on the whole other side, like the goalkeeping, the left back issue. But for now, it's that starting 11 that needs focus on. So yeah, 100%.
Zico, what do you think we need?
Similar to Z, I think surgery is needed in the midfield because with the way things look, Xhaka is going to probably leave, which will just leave us with probably El Neni and Partey. So it's not looking that good. So for me, I would say 3 midfielders is needed, 1 anchor and 2 number 8s. A right back is probably needed as well because Chambers, as much as he's good, I feel like more quality is needed on that area. A backup left back for Kieran Tierney, and I would say a goalkeeper because I feel like if we are gonna play to this system, we need a ball-playing goalkeeper to start this off.
Yeah, same for me. If we can get rid of Leno, I'd really want a keeper. I think Leno hinders us in the build-up, and he's very scared to come out and collect balls at time. So I think we need a keeper, a right back definitely, because we've seen a right back very important to our build-up, our attack, us trying to be unpredictable. So we need a right back like maybe Hakimi, a DM or an anchor, another centre mid, and a creative player, and a backup left back for Kieran Tierney for me, because
the injuries.
We've seen him be overplayed for this whole season, and it's been a bad downfall for us, to be honest, him being overplayed. So we need a left back and Nom. Who do you think we should sign?
You know what, guys? I'm going to repeat a lot of the sentiment that most of the guys have sort of said here. I think, most of the fan base that have been paying attention to what the manager's been saying, and in terms of where our gaps have been, as you've been following the team this year, there's certain gaps are definitely obvious, and others, I think, the fan base has debated what kind of profile of players should come in, and to be honest, I mean, I think the given ones are that we definitely need a new right back to replace. I think would be Bellerin going and Ainsley Maitland-Niles, who's a sort of reluctant sort of player, and then that's heartbreaking for the fan base, obviously, because for two different reasons. A lot of people would love Ainsley to stay and make that his own spot, but I don't think that's going to happen. And Bellerin's been a long-serving sort of servant. And I think we shouldn't forget that. The left back reserve spot, I think, I'm just taken aback a little bit by how far things are moving. Like with the Granit Xhaka story, I feel like we are going to make more radical changes than I thought we were going to. Right, and that might be down to the fact that the player wants to leave. But then I think to myself, when Kieran didn't play, it affected our team quite a bit in terms of the way, the balance of our attack and the way we've been playing this season. So I'm thinking, are we going for a more expensive profile to come in and compete with Kieran, or to sort of rotate? I know we've only got one game per year, but there's lots of these questions still floating around. But I think, as I said, those positions sort of are given, and then it's about what happens with the striker position. I don't know if there's a big debate about whether we should get a striker or not, and I'm not a fan of that. I think if you get a good attacking left winger, a right-footed player who can come in and do what Saka and Pepe are doing on the right wing, then that would make a massive difference, and that would maximise our attacking output. I've been saying forever that we should be looking at midfield for a long time. I think it's obvious. I think we should be looking at midfield players that can fit different profiles within midfield. So 2-6-8s, what I call 2-6-8s. I don't want to buy a player who's just purely a 6. I like to buy a player who can actually come up and do a job as an 8, depending on injuries and what happens in the squad and the opposition. And I'd love to find and these are the rare profiles, a proper 8-10, right? A player who can actually play the 8 position and do a job as a 10 and be effective in both. So that's my sort of gist of it. And I think, going back to what CK was saying about Leno, I think we've seen the limitations of Leno. If Granit Xhaka has, somehow limited our team, and David Luiz has somehow limited our team, then we can't say Leno hasn't limited our team, regardless of how good a professional he is and how good a servant he's been at the club. And as I said, now it's about the evolution of the team. Now the question we've got to ask ourselves is, how far are Arsenal going to evolve this summer, and how much is that going to be down to the market? All right, so those are the other questions that come up when I'm thinking about profiles of players that I'd like the club to get. Okay,
give me a quick answer to this. Seeing how AFC asked, do you think it's the right time to sell Xhaka? And if so, who would be your ideal replacement other than Soumare? Who wants to go first? Quick answer.
George, you're Soumare guy, so why don't you take that?
Well, listen, I think it's because, look, I've talked quite a bit about him, but the reason is because when you're looking at a player, okay, and you look at what profile player that's leaving with Granit Xhaka, whatever you think about him, he's a high-volume, progressive passer, and we need that in the midfield. Now, I do believe that Thomas Partey is going to take that role. I've always said Thomas Partey is a Thiago. He's not a Fabinho. I think there's a lot of really weird undertones that get associated with Partey, and he doesn't get the progressive conductor pattern that he should. He can take that role. But why I love Soumare is because statistically, if you look, and I've shown this chart before on Twitter, but looking at under 23 midfielders with at least 500 minutes as a bank of sample size, Soumare is the big, clear progressor, deep progressor rather, in all of Europe's top 5 leagues. So when you're looking at a conductor and you're looking at replacing Granit Xhaka, he isn't just the athlete of a two-way transition monster that can compete in duels, that can go outside wide in isolation. So that's why I love him. So when I start to look at profiles maybe as a plan B, if that's no longer an option, as Senile has said, well, there's other players that I've liked. I liked Locatelli and Camavinga. Those two also do quite well on that side of the the progression stats, but also are two-way monsters. These guys can defend in isolation. I think Locatelli lacks a little bit of a two-way nature that I like, so it's not something that's the top of my list. Realistically, I have said Bissouma. If anybody's looked at my transfer links, I did cite Bissouma as my plan B. Even though I believe Soumare has a little bit more on the ball and off the ball together as a complete package, I think Bissouma actually is a lot better on the ball than people give him credit for. If you look back at his Lille days and you actually look at some of the progression charts, he has no problem being an 8. And in tight spaces, I don't worry about Bissouma on the ball and progression. I really don't. It's more so defending and transition on the other way. But he would probably be my top plan B, Bissouma. Another one I really liked is Ibrahima Diallo at Southampton. That's somebody I've been on for almost over a year now, since his Brest days. He's a phenomenal 6'8", and he has the potential really to be that dominant profile similar to Soumare. So if I had to knuckle it down to kind of choices, my official plan B is Bissouma. After that would have to be Ibrahima Diallo.
Okay. That was a very long-winded answer.
On brand.
Current. Maybe quicker than George.
Maybe quicker than George.
Yeah.
There's three answers to this. One is unrealistic. Paredes. I think Paredes is
From
if
PSG.
we're looking for a Xhaka replacement, he is the obvious choice. Locatelli and Bissouma as George had mentioned, are the main two. I think Paredes gives you an experience factor as well, a leadership factor. He is very rash in a tackle, and I understand that. But if we're looking going forward in the rebuild as we are, then I would say Bissouma. He's very young, can escape very well a tackle, and he can get himself about. So I think ideally, if we're looking at overall, probably Bissouma.
Okay. Carys. Which midfielder or DM's left centre mid would you say?
I'll probably go with what the others have said and go for use Bissouma. I just think that, as said earlier, his on-the-ball quality tends to be quite underrated. Like, don't get me wrong, he's a very, very good player defensively. Like, I believe if I saw a stat somewhere on Twitter, they were saying that he's amassed the most tackles and interceptions combined of any player in the league, which is very positive. But as well as that, he's quite key to the way Brighton progress the ball, and you have to be good at progressing the ball in a Graham Potter team. So that's not something to be discounted. So I think he'd be a very good signing for us. And then also Camavinga would be probably a more ambitious move as well. I don't think he'd hit the ground running straight away, but he'd be someone that you're sure is going to become a world beater. He can go two ways. If you play him as a number 8, he's got that guide on the ball to move laterally. Even playing in deeper areas, he's proved many times that he can do it. For example, his debut against PSG is the one that everybody remembers. The way he was spraying the ball out wide everywhere, he was fantastic. So Camavinga's the kind of guy that you can mold him into whatever you want him to be, which is a plus point of his. So yeah, those are the two that I would consider, but I'd probably go Bissouma because he'll be ready to hit the ground running.
Okay. Z.
To be fair, ultimately, what we're going to see is we're going to need that surgery in midfield. And now, I already know everybody says Xhaka is very good at passing. We're going to lose that passing ability in midfield. But what we lose in passing ability, we might gain in athleticism. And I think that could be quite beneficial for our team because our past 3 to 4 years, that's something that we've lacked immensely. So I think someone like Bissouma, someone like even Sander Berg would be great for that midfield. Maybe someone like Camavinga could potentially elevate the quality in the team, but for now, someone like Bissouma would be a very good stand-in. I think it's time to move on from that.
Okay. Nom. What centre mid would you say?
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with most people here about Bissouma. I think I was trying to look at when El Neni's played with Partey in midfield, and where Partey's looked the best. I felt at times. Don't get me wrong. I think Granit and him made a formidable pivot as well, in games. But I felt that allows Partey to go up and sort of play with more freedom because I think part of my frustration with Partey and this is I think what's important because we know he's going to be in the first team next year is. I think he's always worried about that transition with Granit sitting behind him. So I think that frees his mind up if Bissouma and him can play in tandem. So I think that's the consideration I have in my mind when I'm thinking about who replaces Xhaka, who's best to partner with Partey. And I don't think people are sort of giving that narrative that, Bissouma, if a player like Bissouma comes in and frees up Partey to do his thing. I think also Partey playing with Bissouma allows Bissouma to be a little bit more forward thinking as well, right, compared to what he has to in Brighton. Because I think in Brighton, he has to sort of shepherd the defence where he's got two more creative players ahead of him. So that should be interesting if those two can get together. That's my opinion.
Zico, I'm guessing you're going to say Bissouma as well.
No, I've actually been a big fan of Manuel Locatelli. I feel like he should be the choice to replace Xhaka because he possesses that versatility to play a vital role in different situations. He can play a number 6 and a number 8. One of his big traits for me is that he possesses the ball retention ability within the tight spaces, as well as I read a stat before Christmas that he averaged 9.11 progressive passes, which was only bettered by Zielinski, De Paul, and Luis Alberto. So I think he would be a good move to buy it. Plus, he'll be probably cheap for around 25 million.
Okay, so we've gone through the sentiments. Let's say right back. For me, the right back we should sign is Hakimi. I think he's by far the best option on the market. He's world class as a right back, right wing back, left wing back. He's a lot more versatile than a lot of the options in the market. He's both footed, can whip in cross, scores goals. And if people want to bring up stats, that he has 15 goals and assists in each of the last 2 seasons from right back. He just won the league, so people asking for experience, he'll have it. A winning mentality, he'll have it. He may be more expensive than other options, but I think the extra money is definitely warranted. So for me, we should sign Hakimi as the right back. Any disagreements?
No. I mean,
Yep.
the question is availability. That's the question. Is he going to be available? Is Madrid going to go back to him? Especially if Conte goes to Madrid. Is he going to go back to Madrid? Is PSG in for him? That's the question. If he's available, 100% snap him up today. He fits our system perfectly, and it will give us basically. I mean, I hate doing a reductionist take like this, but it will give us the ability to have another Kieran Tierney on the right, someone who's really going to whip in crosses and contribute offensively to our build-up play. But if he's not available, then we have to look at other options, and my option is Riddle Baku. Very, very, very not. I mean, he's not at the same level, but I think he's someone who is going to be going forward is also very good dribbler, and someone who can really push our right back spot in competition wise. So also obviously we're very stacked at right back. I mean, not in terms of quality, but in terms of numbers, and it depends on who we get out as well. So there's a lot of up in the air about it. So, but those are 2 options I would suggest.
Okay, George, who would you suggest?
Listen, everybody on Twitter knows that my first choice is Hakimi if we can do it. But I'm looking at the figures that are being quoted right now, and if that limits our ability to take forward other positions in the market, then I'm not a fan of spending 70 million on a right back who I feel my plan B, who I've talked about in Rydal Baku, the difference in price would probably be about 30 to 40 million as opposed to 70 million. And he's not 2 times the worst player. He isn't. The gap between the two in terms of quality is actually much lower than people would perceive. I actually would argue that Rydal Baku is the more complete player. If you're looking at players that, are complete both defensively and offensively, Rydal Baku, even though Hakimi has a lot of these defensive tropes that people don't really have updated their opinion on, he doesn't have the exact same defensive awareness issues that he's had. He tracks runners with a lot more determination than he does under Conte. He's gained an appreciation for the tackle, but Rydal Baku in 1v1 isolation is unmatched. That guy is absolutely dominant in duels. And what I like about him is he's a slightly more dribbly version of Hakimi, which people will question at first. But if you watch the two, Hakimi actually is a lot more varied in his creative passing, especially higher up the pitch. And so while you're really used to him bombing on onto the wing, when he does find himself in isolation, I actually see that Hakimi has a lot more varied passing than he's given credit for. He can go in and out, but Rydal Baku is a slightly more dribbly aspect in terms of the profile. And in terms of him coming through, he was a midfielder before. So if you look at whether he can perform an inverted role, and you're not limiting yourself to tactical versatility, while Hakimi can play inverted, Baku carries the much greater technical competency in tight spaces because he was a right midfielder for Mainz before he burst onto the scene with Wolfsburg and was moved to right back. So if you're looking at overall the financial package and what you get, don't get me wrong, I love Hakimi. I've kind of, I've been one of the few that have on Twitter really got, in that promo since November. But if you're looking at the prices involved right now, I really get worried between the two. I've heard of Mazraoui from a lot of people who I have, recommended, but he does not have the technical, or not the technical, rather, the athletic ability in transition that Rydal Baku does. If you're looking for somebody that was a midfielder turned right back, and that's one of your kind of measures of what you want in an inverted right back, then Baku is your man because he also can go wide and be an outlet. So Rydal Baku is my clear choice right now. If we can do the impossible and we have a marquee and it is Hakimi, I won't be crying. You won't see me saying no. But right now, for the prices, Baku.
Okay. Nom, who would you sign? Right back.
To be honest, I'm with the guys. I think Hakimi would have been our number one choice. I don't know really who would be a plan B, because to be honest, I don't know how. If we must have had somebody in mind, but I can't see who it would be. So I guess we all like to have someone similar in profile. I think this one's got the scope to have. It's going to be the surprise sort of package if it isn't Hakimi, because Hakimi would, if we did have a realistic chance, he'd have been our obvious choice. So here, I think this is the one that I think might shock the rest of the fan base, and we might end up with somebody that we didn't think of. That's just my feeling. But if it was down to my choice, I like Rydal Baku. I've seen quite a bit of him recently over the last 4 or 5 months, and I've liked what I've seen. I think he would require a lot of work in terms of understanding his positioning, etc., in the formation that we have. But he's got all the raw ingredients, and I think George is right, and Karen, I think might mention it, that he's got the potential. I honestly think he's got the potential to be an amazing player, because what really excites me about him is his ability to come into his left foot and play as strongly off his weaker foot as he is, on his stronger foot, which gives him that sort of unpredictability. And I think to myself, I think what we want to look at is, the best teams have partnerships. So if, let's just say, argument's sake, Saka is on that wing, playing in that position, who is he going to form an effective partnership with? I think we should look at that as well, not just the player in isolation. Because I think the player that comes in, they've got to understand Saka's strengths and how they will dovetail with those strengths. So I really think that the partnership that we form in that side is going to be critical, and the dynamic.
Okay. Zico, I'm guessing you're Hakimi as well then.
Yeah, I think with Hakimi, the price tag is off-putting a bit, because 70 million is a bit too much. But given that for me he's like a top 3 right back, I think we should be all over it. I think one of the big misconceptions with him is that people assume that he's a wing back and he can't defend. But I feel like that's nonsense, given I've seen him play for Inter Milan and the kid can defend. Plus he's 22, so that's a good age profile with the way that our centre backs are and the age that we're trying to build off. Hakimi is my first choice. The second choice was actually Rydal Baku. And another choice I have as a backup option was Pedri Porro, I believe, from Man City. I just feel like Hakimi should be the number one target, and I feel like that should be the emphasis. That should be the marquee signing for me.
Okay. Carys, what right back would you sign for Arsenal this season?
I would probably go with the boring answer that everyone else has said, is Rydal Baku. was it from watching him, he kind of reminds me in a way of Cancelo, just his behavior in possession. And I'll go away from George's point of how he dribbles and stuff. I think another point that suits him well is the fact that he's a very intense player. And when I say intense, I mean in the sense that he'll go up and down the pitch for the full 90 minutes without, you know, losing breath at all. And I believe as well he has amassed the most sprints of any player in the Bundesliga, which tells you how good he is in that sense. And his crossing quality has helped the likes of Weghorst to score a lot of goals to push Wolfsburg into that Champions League spot. So, you know, I feel like he's got everything, to be honest, and I think we should be targeting him. If I can give some other suggestions, though, there's also Zeki Selik from Lille. I think he's a very good, very balanced right back. If you want someone that is, he's maybe not as attacking as Baku, but, you know, he's a very solid and dependable player, which, you know, we could use that and it could help somebody like Kieran Tierney to be able to push on further forward in that front five. And yeah, those are the only two I can think of, really.
Okay.
I mean, the only other one that we can think of is Max Aarons, but I don't rate him personally. I don't think he's on that level that we need, and I don't think he's going forward has the ability that some of the other names we have mentioned have.
I think it's quite a dynamic right back, but I do have doubts about him defensively. That's really the main doubt I have.
Yeah, that's that too. I just don't think he has the offensive output as someone like a Hakimi or a Riddle back either.
Well, the tough thing with Max Aarons, and I'll get into this because everyone keeps asking me about Max Aarons, is look, you're getting a less potent Hector Bellerin now. And so what I mean by that is you're getting an inverted right back who's probably really good in tight spaces, but I don't think he has the athletic ability that I like to really force that issue up the pitch, but he lacks defensive awareness and blind run awareness too. If you have Max Aarons on 1v1 challenges kind of out wide, you're going to be afraid. You're going to be looking for your center back to kind of back him up because that's not his strength. And this is what I mean when I look at players. Do we want inverted right back? If we're not sure, then you need to recruit players that can do both. And so that's why you need to focus on somebody like a Baku, somebody that is versatile, isn't cornered to one aspect of the game. And so these are the type of purchases that we need to make now, and that this is what's going to get us back to the top. You need to look at what do you need in your players. And the only reason I'm going a little bit longer on this, Chris, is because I think it's important that when you recruit a player, recruit it to your fundamentals and your non-negotiables. That means, are they an athletic beast? Yes, he is. He has the most sprints in the Bundesliga. Is he a ball-carrying progressor? Can he do that? Yes, he can. Is he a young player that we can form for almost a decade? Yes. These are the recruitment steps that you need to do, not just, oh, is this player good? Is his stats really good? Does he have 8 or 10 goals and assists? How does that compare to others? Nonsense. When you look at the EPL, you need to look at these fundamentals. Are they two-way? Are they versatile? And are they ball-carrying progressors? Because ultimately, any coach will tell you a dribbler disrupts the system. That is what every fear of a coach is, whether that's in defense, midfield, or attack. A dribbler disrupts every single one of your counter presses because he removes the structure that you thrive on. And even coaches like Arteta and Pep, if you look at all their games where they've really struggled, put a dribbler in their system or against their system, and it can fail because he can take out players and he can take out the structure.
Okay. Z.
To be fair, I mean everything that I would have said has probably been said by everyone else. So, I mean that's my part done. To be fair, we can say that we've been looking at Hakimi since probably February. I mean I reported that quite early on, and then David Ornstein came out and confirmed that. So it goes to show that this is that is the type of profile that we're looking at for that right back position. I think previously we saw someone like Lamptey being linked as well, and it was Lamptey, and now we've seen Hakimi. Not so much Baku, but the fact is that's the kind of profile we should be aiming for. Essentially, what I want to see is someone like Kieran Tierney on the other side, and not so much more like a Hector Bellerin, which I feel like and someone like Max Aarons is very similar to. I think I've watched Max Aaron's play quite a lot, and to be fair, he doesn't have that explosiveness that I want to see from my right back. And so we can keep Callum Chambers if that's the case, if that's what we want in our right back. But there's this one player, I think, Chelik from Lille, which I think hasn't been mentioned, and I don't think we've been linked at all. But I think that could be one of the dark horses because we have a very good relationship with Lille, and we like to get a player from them every season. And ideally, if it means that we need a right back, we could ideally target someone. I know he's not similar to the profile of Hakimi, but he's not like Max Aaron's either. So I think he could be a dark horse, but I don't know what you guys think. What about you, George? What do you think about someone like Chilik coming in at Arsenal?
Celik, he's good. Okay, he's much better than Aarons or Emerson if we're looking at from a link perspective.
Exactly.
With Celik, I do just struggle with that explosivity on it. He's very good. It's not that he's poor at it. It's just he doesn't have that X factor that, say, a Baku would or others.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we said our right backs, we said our centre mids. Just quickly say the backup left back, because I think we all mentioned the backup left back. So say your backup left back for to Kieran Tierney.
So it's for me, it's Thierry Small. It's quite clear. I don't know about anyone else, but for me, it's Thierry Small. I like him as young left back, so that's who my pick is.
Okay, Z.
I'm gonna go with the funny one, Marcos Alonso. I don't know why. I think that we're not looking at any left backs right now as a priority. I think sooner or later, probably towards the end of the season, end of the transfer window, we're going to be like, okay, we need a left back. Who do we get in? Probably bring someone like Marcos Alonso in and then cry about it for a season. I'm being as honest as possible. I don't think it's something that we need, that we're addressing right now. We've got other positions to focus on. That's a fact.
Would you be happy with Marcos Alonso?
No, 100% not. But I think it's a bit of part of what we see with Arsenal. We try to fill in the we try to have major surgery with the team, and then we try and fill in the gaps with players that are probably 2 levels below of what we have in the first team, and then essentially creates that gap between the first team and the second team. So I'm just going by what's happened in the past, and it's probably a bit of a jokey answer, but I have a feeling it just could be Marcos Alonso. But if not, then probably go for a youthful left back for sure.
Okay, Zico, at left back. Please don't say Marcos Alonso.
Emerson, yeah. I must say, I wanted Ryan Bertrand originally, but it looks like he's going to Leicester. So for me, I'd agree with what you said, CK. Thierry Smalls.
Okay. Carys, backup left back.
I'm the same. I probably would have gone for Brian Bertrand because he's just experienced and he's used to the league and he's called upon him, but he's gonna go to Leicester, so I'll probably go for a more riskier option. He's quite young, but it's Josh Doig from Hibs. He recently was crowned Young Player of the Season in Scotland, and he's a very similar profile to Tierney in the sense that they're both athletic fullbacks that like to bomb up and down, can both put in a decent crossing, and I just think Josh is learning a lot from Tierney for sure, and there's even somebody that he even idolizes too, so I think they'd work well together. So I'd go with Josh Doig.
Okay, Nom, quickly before George. What do you want to say?
Yeah, I to be honest, I think Josh Doig is someone I looked into as soon as we got linked. He's still young, he's still quite raw. There's still aspects of his game that needs to be developed, but I think it's that kind of player that you bring in who can sort of replicate as best as we can what Tierney brings to the team. So for me, I think Josh Doig has the potential to do that. And it would be good for him to be an understudy to someone that he looks up to, someone like Tierney that he says that he's grown up looking up to.
Okay, quickly, I'd say Corinne's mentioned Thierry Small. I'd like him to, but if not, I think Lee Buchanan. Even though his team nearly got relegated, but I think he's performed very well this season. He got an under 21 call up, I think, for England. Offensively, can offer us a lot. Even defensively, he's not bad. He can improve, but he's not bad on it. So if we need a cheaper option who can develop into a very good footballer, I think Lee Buchanan is the left back we should sign. So George.
I think Leicester stalk my profile. They've took my top two options. I was a fan of Bertrand because I think when you're looking at a backup, you want EPL experience right now. I need somebody ready to step in, and ultimately these young profiles I would have paired with a Thierry Small so that you have your succession plan. That's proper recruitment. It's not an issue that you have to do proper like. I think when you look at Thierry Small, one thing that we look at is he's 17 years of age this August. And that's what if he were not to sign a professional contract. And when you look at Tierney, who I believe is 23, if someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a 6-year gap right there. Maybe he's 24, I forget. But when you're looking 23. At backup, sorry?
23.
23, okay. And so that's a great age difference if you're looking at a backup. And the reason I look at Thierry Small, he recently got a call up to the under-19s at England. He has the world-class potential and an explosivity aspect. So when you're looking at all of these lads, Doig, Lee Buchanan, Thierry Small, you're not going to expect the defensive competency from these lads. They're young. So when I look at it, if they're all attacking profiles like Kieran Tierney, who is the most explosive one? Who is the one that you believe is going to beat their man consistently? And it's got to be Thierry Small. I think Doig, he's actually quite tall. Everyone says he's really similar to Tierney, which he is, but he's actually a little bit slower. I think he could actually develop into that almost left center back or left wing back kind of role very nicely, but he is a little bit taller and he is a step slower, I would say, than some of the other options in Lee or Thierry. But I think that deal is actually kind of done, if I'm really being honest with you. Like, we have a preseason with Hibs. I don't think that's coincidence. So I think Doig is a very hotly kind of tracked profile that we're linked with. I would still go with Thierry Small. He has that world-class explosion that you don't see in the others, So ultimately, Thierry Small's our guy if I'm really choosing, and he's also going to be for free or for a nominal fee. So in terms of all of these players, they're not going to come with expense. So
yeah, Small will probably be the cheapest because he's 17 of 1 year left.
Yeah, nominal fee. We're talking 1 or 2 million max. So all the other options, Lee Buchanan or Doig, I would imagine are in the 4 or 5 range. Still, like, it's not horrible. You know what I mean? These prices aren't the reason that we're choosing it. Ultimately, I'm choosing him because I'm expecting defensive lapses from all three because they're not experiences. But I believe that Small will be more explosive and is already. So his floor is higher as far as I'm concerned. Once you have that explosivity in the Prem, you're good. And he's also built like a man. I think I hear people saying, George, he's 17. Lads, if you look at Thierry Small, he looks like he's 22. Yeah. It's a massive gap.
Do you not feel we need a more of a experienced left back for that left hand side?
Well, I would have wanted Bertrand and Small, so this was my original plan. This is why, I'm not a fan of this young. If I'm really being honest, I'm not a fan of this. I really want Bertrand and Thierry Small, both for free and for nominal fees. That was my plan going into the window, but I think Leicester have followed my my profile too much. They took my Samare and my Bertrand. So I agree, Izzy.
Yeah,
I think we do need
while we're here, we're talking about young players. George is our academy expert here. Is there anyone coming through that you would say, okay, maybe I'd give him a chance, a couple of games?
That's the problem. So academy at left back, I think it's one of our weakest positions. So we have Joel Lopez that people will cite, but he's really not ready. And I don't think he'll ever be ready. He strikes me as somebody that's really technical, but doesn't have the defensive nous to really proceed. And he's really quite old compared to the rest of them. So I really doubt that he's going to explode in the future. I do like Lefcott, who's a younger, U18 left back that we have. But if I'm comparing Lefcott to Thierry Small, who are both the same age, Thierry Small is already with the U19s. He's ahead. So that's why I don't think academy is going to supply us with one. At right back, we have an excellent one, and we don't need a right back, Brooke nor Kincuffy. Yeah. But at left back, we have an issue, and I actually think even at left center back, we have an issue. Every other position, I could name you awesome youngsters that I'm really confident about. But those two positions, we struggle.
Okay, so we've said our right backs. The general consensus is Hakimi or Baku. We've said our left backs. The general consensus was Bertrand, and if not, Thierry Smalls. And at centre mid, most of us said Locatelli or Bissouma. So in the
Goalkeeper.
so as a creative player, one of the questions was asked. One of the questions that was asked was literally our question mark, Grealish question mark, Buendia question mark. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, they play very different roles. Is my answer to that. I think you need to look at the profiles you want to evolve this team with. If we're going 4-3-3, then it's going to be a completely different set of profiles that you're going to need if you're going to be playing a double pivot. If you look at the personnel we have at the moment in terms of attacking midfielder, we have a very promising youngster in Emil Smith-Rowe is coming through, and personally, it's just me, I think the way we utilize him best is we have someone that can interact with him in that left half space that allows him to drift in and out of each half space. So he can interact with Saka in the right half space. He can interact with the man I'm going to say in the left half space. He can also basically allows him to drift, it allows him to dribble, and allows him to penetrate and get balls into our fullbacks or our centre forward, and that will be Kusamawa. But the question is he available? And the question is, how is Brahim Aouar and his situation impacting the deal? So, ideally, Houssam Aouar, in terms of Emiliano Buendia, it's a case of he's great. He's great everywhere. He's great on right, left, centre. But are we really going to say that he's an 8? I don't think he's an 8. I think he's someone. If we're going to progress further up the pitch, then fine. But I struggle with him. I prefer Houssam Aouar. In terms of Jack Grealish, I think with Jack Grealish, there's too much to do in this window. If there's too much, if it's an ideal window, we could have £450 million. Go get Jack Grealish. Perfect. But there's too many issues. There's too many holes in the squad to plug, and that's why Houssam Aouar at something like 25 to 30 million pounds. Done deal. Done. Get him done. Get him in the shirt. Let's get him on the pitch.
So you say Aouar over Buendia on the left?
Over Buendia.
Okay.
On the left, yes. On the left, in the left centre mid spot. Someone that's able to interact with Emil Smith, because you'll have Emil on the left, and you can have Emil drift in and out with Houssam Aouar. So you have them interchanging and overlapping each other.
Okay, Z, I'm guessing you say Aouar as well.
No, 100% not. Okay, I think the common misconception is, we're trying to compare Aouar and Buendia, when essentially they are two different profiles. We can compare Buendia more as a right winger, or someone that attacks the right half space, compared to Aouar, who can operate as an 8, as a left attacking midfielder. And actually, most recently in the Champions League, we saw him play in a pivot with Ndombele against Manchester City. So he can also play different roles. So why not get both the team? Because that will help our team progress a lot more. But if it meant that I had to choose one over the other, for me, just because of pure numbers, I'd have to choose Buendia, because I feel like he's that one player that can.
Did you say Buendia?
Yeah, 100%. Because I have to say, this season in the Championship, he's got what 15 goals, 16 assists, or it's probably the other way around, and those numbers can't be ignored. It can't be ignored, and I feel like he can actually do at least something very similar, or something of that number for Arsenal. And again, when I'm looking at someone like Aouar, is he a player that's going to transform our team in terms of assists and goals? I personally don't think so. Someone like Grealish can, but not Houssam Aouar. So for me, if it was either between Buendia or Aouar, it has to be Buendia. But Why not just get both in?
Okay. Carys.
Yeah, it's funny because of me and CK actually we had this debate a day before this pod's been aired, and like the others have said, I think it'd be best if we actually got both Awar and Buendia. Awar kind of your guy that he operates in the left half space quite a lot. I said to him that he reminds me a little bit of Iniesta in his style of play, like the close control, the way he links play together. Like him and Smith Rowe would definitely be on the same wavelength for sure, and I think they'd vibe well together. Then you have Buendia, who also operates in the right half space to let Max Aaron's overlap. I think a lot of doubt over Buendia comes from the fact that they've seen him play mostly on the right, and they're not sure if he could play centrally. But I believe that the characteristics he has, like his close control, his eye for a free ball, I think they would translate very well in centre. And he could even play as a number 8, as he did in the Premier League when Norwich were there against Man City. Like he did very well carrying the ball up quite a few distances. He's also a player that going backwards as well. He's very intense in the tackle. Maybe something there's a little bit of petulance there, but he is somebody that will also work hard for the team as well as create quite a lot. But like someone said earlier, I just feel like you can't ignore Wendy's pure numbers that he's putting up on the pitch. Like we've kind of missed that ever since the likes of Ozil and Ramsey have left the club. Like his creativity in terms of chances created ranks him almost near the likes of De Bruyne, the likes of Jack Grealish himself, who should be our top target, but it's probably not going to happen. But yeah, you just can't really ignore those numbers. But to be honest, I wouldn't be upset with either of them, even though I do like Wendy a little bit more.
Okay. Zico. Who would you say?
It's a tough one, but I'd actually agree with Z. Get both of them in. It just gives that more flexibility. I'm a big fan of Buendia. Like the guy has got it all: ball progression, tackles, chance creation. The last time he was in the league, in the Premier League, only Kevin De Bruyne beat his top creator XG. So like he gives us option on the right. The only worry with Buendia is I've never seen him play on the left, but I've heard that he did start off on the left. Whereas with our, I feel like that left space is his, and he would 22 million is like just a bargain. You have to take it. So for me, I just take both. That flexibility from a 4-3-3 and a 4-2-3-1 is right there.
If it's both, okay. If it's both, I thought we were doing either or. If it's both, then obviously both.
I think we all agree we take both. I think we all.
If it's both, then obviously both. But if we're talking one or the other, then I would go with our. That's my position.
If it was one, if it was one or the other, I'd pick our. Ours my first choice.
Yeah, mine too.
George, I know you've been waiting, so
Here we
George, who would you say now? If it was either or, our or Buendia?
It has to be Awar. Listen, I've heard a lot of debates on this, but you know what? Nam said something earlier in the program about partnerships. Okay. And when you look at projection into our team, what is lacking right now? It is creativity in the left half space, not so much the right. And people say, well, George, ESR has played left wing. Lads, he is an attacking midfielder, and he's always started on the left wing, but that was never his long-term position. He is a snappy attacking midfield that will get you goals. And when you're looking at partnerships on the pitch, who is the most complementary front three? So if we're going to run through it, Awar, Emile Smith-Rowe, Saka, or Emile Smith-Rowe, Buendia, Saka. That's essentially the debate when you're looking at like a gun-to-a-head answer, which of the two. And when you're looking at who is most comfortable where, ESR is most comfortable in the center. That is no doubt where he is most comfortable. Now, if I'm going to facilitate who is most comfortable on the pitch, it has to be Awar, ESR, and Saka. What I use as a metric, though, is I'm a pragmatist at heart. I think a lot of people don't understand this, but really, if I'm up the pitch and I'm attacking with 5 channels, and this is the scenario I want to pose to everybody, okay? We lose the ball in the final third, and I'm asking Buendia or Emile Smith-Rowe in the center to track back and catch Kevin De Bruyne. Who is doing it? Now, if that happens on the wing, I'm okay, because that doesn't compromise central compactness. And this is the difference between a Buendia or an Aouar, very simply, where I think the question is, who do you prefer, Emile Smith-Rowe or Buendia? Now, that is where I really fundamentally have a problem. Now, if we're going to go to pure numbers, we can go to pure numbers with Houssam Aouar and we go with Buendia. If you're projecting him to be an attacking midfielder, he had 1 goal in the Prem in that position when he was in the Prem. So a lot of this success that we're predicting with Norwich, you need to look at the role. A lot of it, he's performed much higher up in the pitch in that right wing area. So when you're getting all of those goals, you're getting all of those chances created. He's playing the role of a right winger getting those. He's not playing the role of an attacking midfielder. And when he did it 1 goal in the Prem. Now, if you're looking at Aouar's chance creation, his shot creating actions, if you actually look at his statistics, he's in the 99th percentile of all midfielders, factually in shot creating actions. He does also in the 95th percentile for non-penalty assists. Now listen, they're very 2 different profiles. You're looking at Buendia, who is a on-the-ball stud. I've said it in the past, and anyone saying otherwise is using hyperbole. We aren't getting a bad player if we choose Buendia. I want to make that very clear. But the question becomes, if it's a gun to my head, who am I preferring, Emile Smith-Rowe or Buendia? Because that's going to be the decision. And who do I want limited? Well, it can't be Emile Smith-Rowe for me, because I think that kid has absolutely world-class potential in the middle. He's shown it. And ultimately, it's that defensive transition and central compactness. If we're looking at Arteta, what is his non-negotiable? It's simple. It's central compactness. So if I'm asking Buendia or Emile Smith-Rowe to catch Kevin De Bruyne on the run after we've lost possession, I'm counting my eggs on Emile Smith-Rowe every day of the week.
Yeah, very true.
That's really where I stand on it.
I still feel like, though, you're underrating Buendia's work rate. Like, even I saw some stat from Squawka the other day where when he was in the Premier League, they said that, he's one of the few players to amass 50-plus chances created, 50-plus tackles, and there was something else. But I do feel like he can have that sort of effect and have that work rate going back too. Not to say that Smith-Rowe doesn't have it, but I believe he does too. And my other question as well to you would be, do you think that we would get enough goals with Aouar, ESR and Saka? Because I feel like we're putting a lot of pressure on those 2 youngsters to get the goals that we need and the goals that we have missed for quite a while. So that's what I'd really ask.
Yeah, 100%. No, and I agree. But you know what? I look and I question Odegaard for this exact reason. So when I looked at the Odegaard profile, and a lot of people were very excited when he came in, I told people he's a behind the ball expert, just like Buendia. But Buendia is better than Odegaard. Let's have that right now. I'm going to tell you guys, he has that ability to counter press. But really what I'm getting is over large distances, I don't think Buendia has it over 15 yards. He can't do that. And that hammers a non-negotiable for me. So it's not really the work rate that I'm concerned with. I'm concerned in transition when it's in the middle. That's really what I'm fearful of. And when I add, Thomas Partey in addition to that, I start to get worried, because I think Thomas is going to be in the right side and he's going to be protecting that. So that center pitch needs to be really controlled. And I almost feel more comfortable with Emile dropping into that center than I do with Buendia. And I've seen it more with Emile than I have with even Buendia when he's been in the Prem. Now, in terms of goals, I am actually projecting that Saka is going to be a lot better with that type of profile. And when you actually look at Emile Smith-Rowe with his physical development, if you track what he's doing right now, he's going to be on pace to score that kind of goal-scoring attacking midfield profile. So I don't think I'm losing goals with that, because I don't think Emile or Emi Buendia is going to be in the right wing where he's got his goals. That's where I think the big difference. If you're projecting him in the middle, it's a very different set of goals. And if you actually go through his Norwich goals, I did, and I actually did this just to prepare for this debate. He's got 4 goals in the center. If you actually look back over 2021 and you look at his goals, and 2 of those came from deflections. So most of his goals, if you do go back and look at Norwich, are bursting through the half space on the right. And I don't think he's going to be in that position if he's playing in our team. That's kind of the fundamental thing that I'm really scared about. So in that sense, I don't think the goals will translate as well as what we're saying, unless you're replacing him for Saka. Now, again, the only thing I want to talk about, though, is I think we should get both, because we need an option as a backup attacking midfielder. We really do. Yeah. And Buendia is my choice as long with actually Mathis Pereira from West Brom. Those are two I've always said I really love for depth in the attacking midfield.
George,
Good comment has been brought up about Odegaard. No one's mentioned him at all. So we're all packing him, right? There's no one on the Odegaard stays trade.
No. I had a question, George. We're talking about Emil Smith Rowe versus Wendy and Owl, but do you trust Emil Smith Rowe's fitness? Because for me, I feel like availability is actually one of the most important abilities as well, and he actually missed a lot of last season. I think he was meant to be part of the first team from the start. He didn't play until December against Chelsea, and we can't afford to have that again. Do you trust Emil Smith Rowe?
100%. He did this exact same thing at Huddersfield. If anybody followed kind of his career, so look, he's a youngster in need of physical development. But when you're looking at a team that's only got one game a week next season, the idea that he will struggle without another year or a preseason rather in the Prem, I don't struggle as much or fearful of that. And even if that was to be the case, again, I would love a backup depth signing, right? So I'm not against the idea of signing both Buendia and Nawar for that reason. And that's actually what I would advise if we were doing it. But again, the question becomes, though, who do you think has the potential to start over 60% of our games in that position? And who do you trust to do that role with the best that you've asked? And my pick is Emil Smith Rowe, because even if he is going to miss a couple games, he's going to be available for more than 70% of the season, for sure. And so if that's the gun to my head and I'm asking which one of the two, then I'm choosing Emil Smith Rowe for really the reason of transitions. Really, that's it. And also the projection in the middle. I haven't seen that with Buendia. Like, I know a lot of this right now is projecting Buendia can play in the center. And he can. Like, I don't want this to get across that he can't. But when he has played there, the statistics don't back up. So when you're citing the numbers, you have to cite where he's getting those numbers. And I need to look at partnerships on the pitch. And so for me, we have studs in that position in Saka. We have studs in that position already that I know we'll get the numbers, so I'm not afraid. It's more in the center and on the left. Where am I going to get those numbers? That's where it comes to.
Just quickly, while we're here, just to quickly respond to that question. The issue with Martin Odegaard is, one, his consistency. The consistency, he's very hot and he's very cold. I don't see him being very consistent. The other issue is, tactically, can he play in a 3-2-5, which I don't think he can. I think he gets involved in that right half space too much and he inhibits the actions of someone like Bukayo Saka. And it's not someone I think that going forward, even on another loan. Thank you very much. I appreciate the faith that you've shown in us, but I'm sorry, I don't trust the injuries, I don't trust the consistency, and I don't see tactically it working out. So
look, Chris, quickly, I just want to touch on this Odegaard idea, because look, the reason that we recruited an Odegaard, by the way, is to facilitate our poor technical ability in midfield. A lot of these issues, you have to understand, if we address other areas, we start to have we can push up 10 to 15 yards up the pitch. So Odegaard, while he's naturally wanting to come back, it's also an instruction too right now in terms of our right center midfielder to be involved more deeper, because we don't trust our back six's technical ability. Now, when you add Saliba to this, when you add an Yves Bissouma to this no longer becomes a problem. So you're going to have to push those attacking midfielders higher up the pitch. When you do that, who do they butt heads with? This is, again, my fear. So it's like, when I look at Saka and I look who operates in that zone, and do I need a more technically secure option? I don't think I need that with Saka in that pitch. So I need it more in the center, because I don't want my striker coming back in to fill that role. This is another thing tactically. I don't think I want a false nine, and I don't want one, because I want technical security across the front line and give freedom to the striker. This is another kind of point that I don't think we've touched on. So if you're going to ask for something like a Buendia, who somebody can push on ahead, I think that facilitates, more so a false nine, if I'm really being honest. and I don't see us going that route, and I don't want us to go that route. But another thing is, Emi Buendia can overlap too. I just want to get some pros because it feels like I'm hammering the guy. Like, I love the player here and I love the profile. It's just I don't see him doing what Emile Smith-Rowe can do on a consistent basis off the ball. That's really what it is. And I think he's actually probably better on the ball than Emile right now, though I'd argue I don't think Emile has shown people half his ability. If you look at some of the Huddersfield games and you look at some of the academy games, he still strikes me as a lad who is excited to have been brought up to the first team, and he's not talking like Saka. So he hasn't accepted this as his team yet. When you do see that, you're going to unlock a level of varied passing that you haven't seen for a while. I'm going to cite some of the games that you look at. If you look at the past commentary, I don't know if anyone saw that on YouTube that Arsenal released with Saka and Smith-Rowe.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, I'm going to cite a very specific play there. Does everybody remember when Oba made a run on the far side and Emile spotted it, but he just couldn't complete it? I don't know if anybody.
Physically, he couldn't do it.
Physically, he couldn't do it.
Yeah. He just couldn't get there.
Yeah. So when I'm questioning a player and I'm looking, okay, can he get there? Is he smart enough to make that decision? He does it all the time. So if it's just physical development that I'm waiting for, I don't strike it. I don't then want to limit his potential by buying a senior in that position who I know can reach that and maybe even higher. So I would argue if I put Buendia in the center and I put Emile Smith-Rowe in the center and I compare the numbers, Buendia will get more output, but Emile Smith-Rowe will have more impact on the system in maintaining central compactness. And I think that's really my fundamental flaw between the two. But again, I want both. So I don't want this to come across like I don't want one or the other. I think both is the play. You have to.
Okay. So, Nom, who would you sign then? We're the only one who can't hear him.
No, I think he has.
Okay. So for me, I'd sign Awa. For me, I'd keep, if we do play 4-2-3-1, just say 4-2-3-1. I'd keep Smith-Rowe in the 10 because I think he'd be a better option for us in the 10 than Buendia. And on the left, I think Awa is definitely better than Buendia. In a 4-3-3 at left centre mid or 4-2-3-1 as the left winger. He never stays far on the left anyways. He always cuts in and he acts, even when he's playing centre mid, he acts like a winger. And offensively, he cuts in, he pulls defenses out, and he always drops deep at times and finds himself unmarked. So he can find good pass into the striker, into the wing back. And I think he does that much better than Buendia, especially on the left. So for me, on the left, I'd sign Awa. On the left, I'd sign Awa. And if preferably, we'd sign both.
Yeah.
Okay. So did anyone say they wanted to sign like a striker or forward?
I mean, I did. But
who would you want to sign?
So there's two of them. Vlahovic from Fiorentina is the clear for me, and he's young enough, he's strong enough, he's good in the air, he's good on the floor. He's someone that I think is someone going, because the issue with centre forward is if Laka leaves and Alba gets injured, I don't want everything to be on Balogun. I love Balogun. He's a very good talent, but I want to make sure that he is someone that next season can have the Saka under Emery season. Someone that we can bring in, make sure he gets acclimatized to the role that we want him to fulfill, and then he can push on. Because I don't think it's the same with someone like Miguel Aziz as well, who I think should get some game time next season. These type of players it's a case of dip their feet in the water and get them ready for that next level. I know. I can see George. I can see you. I can see you shaking your head. I know how much you're high on Balogun, but The issue is I think he needs some time. So my picks are Dusan Vlahovic and Ivan Veghorst as well. I think he's a very good target man, somebody can get. Yeah, but my overall pick is Vlahovic.
I personally think what's going to happen is, and this is just from the whispers that I've heard in and around Arsenal from very early on. Martinelli is the backup centre forward at Arsenal behind Aubameyang. Now we might have seen Lacazette playing ahead. That's just purely due to form, availability, and also game. But the fact is, Martinelli is going to pin down that position next season. So I think Balogun will probably be the bit part player, especially when Nketiah leaves as well. But I think when we talk about we need a centre forward, I think George actually mentioned quite a long while ago actually that he thinks that Martinelli's heading ability is probably one of the best in football.
It's the best in the club by far, I think.
So we
World
can
football, mate. I'm gonna make that. Yeah, world football.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go on.
So I think we definitely will see Martinelli up front. We can't pin it on one game. I think he's played centre forward probably 2 games in the Premier League in the last year or so, and we've just literally tried to say, oh no, he's better on the left. We tend to forget that most of his goals for Arsenal came by playing up front for Arsenal. So I don't know where that notion has come from that he's better on the left. I think he sees football better when he plays up front, and I think that it's not even me thinking. We will definitely see Martinelli up front next season. So that's I definitely think that, anyways. So yeah.
Quickly on Martinelli, I think Arteta has possibly benefited him from playing him on the left much recently because, as you can see, his all-round game has definitely improved. He got an assist for Oba. He was, for 2 games in a row, he created the most chances by far. In one game, he created 5 himself. So in 2 games in a row, he created the most chances on the pitch and the most chances for Arsenal. So him playing on the left has definitely benefited him and will only benefit us in the future. And a lot of people complain about his game time this season. And after him getting injured, for me, and him getting that extra rest that an explosive player like him who has knee injuries will only benefit us in the future, because other players who I don't think will get that long rest that they may need, like Neto, after having a knee injury, he's another explosive youngster.
Yeah.
I don't think when he comes back 70, 80% fit, I think he'll be put in straight away, and that may hinder him. You never know. So that extra rest will only benefit us in the future, in my opinion. So we've said our creative player. Some have said Brandia, some have said Awa. I think all of us agreed both. Nom, you never said who you wanted. So Nom, are you going to say who you want?
You know what? To be honest, I'm going to make it really brief because I don't want to repeat everything anyone else said. But I would go for both if I could. I can honestly see why we're going to go for Bendia. Purely because I think I'm not sure if Awa's going to happen. Maybe we've burnt bridges there that we can't, replace. But I agree with everybody that he's better than Odegaard in terms of final product. So, my opinion, honestly, is that Bendia wouldn't be a bad signing if we couldn't get Awa, right? If ideally we could get both, that'd be great, because that'll take us back to the times when we had loads of technical players and flexibility to choose different formations.
Okay. So most of us said we wanted Bissouma, right? Do any of you want another centre mid?
Another centre mid?
Did anyone want 2 centre mids and a creative
I
player?
did want 2 centre mids.
So who's that other centre mid you guys wanted?
Okay, so for me, a player that we are being linked to, but I don't think is first team standard yet, is Sander Berge. I do like his ability on the ball and his ability to progress the ball. I'm going to chuck out a name that has not been mentioned at all, but is someone that I would love to see in this division. Is Barella from Inter Milan.
Yeah,
he's the best option available. I mean, not available, but around. With Inter's situation, who knows what's going with Inter right now. with their situation right now, is he available? Is he not available? If he is, then great. If he's not, then so be it. But I think Sander Berge is one option. Another option, probably on the other side, I would say, I think the other option. I can't think of one. It come back. I think there's one in there. I'll mention it.
Okay, I'd say Camavinga.
Yeah, obviously, Cameron, we mentioned before, yeah.
Camavinga would be my option. So George.
So in terms of a second CM, I'm controversial here. I'm not desperate for a second CM. Whoever is that option, I'm really not bothered if that becomes, an availability thing. I worry on Sander Berge just medically. So I think in terms of a profile, he's phenomenal. Especially as a bench option. I really don't like him as a plan A, but as a bench who can fill in at 6 or 8 and do whatever, he's phenomenal. I really like his profile. It's just medically, he's coming back from a ruptured hamstring tendon that wasn't just partially ruptured; it was completely ruptured. And just medically speaking, when you're looking at somebody who's already 6'4" and you may worry about explosivity, one of the key things that everybody liked about Sander Berge was he was a massive presence, but that he could actually make those runs, and he actually had the explosivity that you wouldn't associate with somebody of that size. I really worry about his long-term ability to maintain that explosivity given his injury. And just a little bit of background for any of the sports physios around there, a torn hamstring tendon is one of the worst things that you can look at from maintaining long-term explosivity in the muscle. Some people cite ACLs. We've actually come quite far in ACL surgeries if you look at kind of some of the history. But a torn hamstring tendon, and completely torn too, I might add. It wasn't just partially torn. It required surgery, so that was a complete tear. We know that for a fact. I really struggle with investing in an option like that, knowing that history. But again, I'm not really pressed for. I would actually go with Ibrahima Diallo if I'm really being honest with you, because again, it's a player that I've watched a lot more closely, but also I don't fear medically about any long-term issues, and he could be a 6'8" if you're really looking at. But lads, I hate to be that guy. Miguel Aziz, I've bookmarked for a large role in the Arsenal setup, and I know we're very afraid not to give these roles to these youngsters. But lads, we have one game a week, and so when you're looking at a second CM, you're not looking at them competing in 20 games a season. You're looking at them competing in 5 to 10. And actually, I would love that for Miguel Aziz to do and to see what he can do, because he's that perfect profile of a 6'8", and he's I really like him because he scans really quite well and he's positionally quite astute. He has a lot to work on defensively, but the fact that he scans so regularly, and I think we saw this in one of his Europa League experiences too. I forget who he faced, but he made a really nice Cruyff turn on somebody really quite early in the group stages. But if you look at that passage of play right before, the lad scans like 4 times, and it's just something that I haven't seen in Ceballos and any of our other midfielders. So for me, you got to facilitate that talent, and I think we have the games to give it to him. I really don't think that we're going to be searching for long-term game time at 1 game a week. So yeah, I don't really care. Give me whoever on the second CM, but I'm a fan of Miguel Aziz.
To be fair with you, George, when we're bringing up someone like Sander Berge into the picture, from what I've heard and what I've been told, anyways, Sander Berge was probably our first choice. I think it stems from probably Granit Xhaka probably telling the hierarchy that he's looking to leave. We've only just found out in the last few months, but he's probably told them a lot earlier on. So, Arsenal's probably looking at the different profiles that they're trying to bring in. Now, Bissouma was completely out of the picture just a few months ago. It's been here and there, and it's still not as advanced as we're thinking it is. But with Sander Berge, there is a very, very huge possibility that he's an Arsenal player this season. And that's purely because, he's got the go-ahead from Mikel Arteta. Mikel Arteta loves his profile. He's also quite familiar with one of our assistant coaches, Mr. Dagenberg, and Also, there were contacts established when Odegaard was at Arsenal. Now we know Odegaard might not come back, but the fact is, we've
The
still established.
referral.
Yeah, well, we could look at it as a referral, but the fact they see Sander Berge as that profile that could, transform that midfield in the sense that he's got the physicality, he's got the explosiveness, and he's got the height. He's got really really good pace as well. And I don't know about his passing range. It's looked a bit off for me sometimes. But like I said, what you lack in passing ability, you can always bring it in. All the other physical aspects as a player. But again, what George has said, from a medical point, it does seem concerning. It does seem concerning, and I think probably the Arsenal team from the outside have looked at how he's developed in terms of his injury and has he progressed. And we have not seen him in the team since his injury, not even towards the end of the season. And I know he was back in full training since May or even earlier than that. We don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's an Arsenal player.
Okay.
I've remembered who it is, and I'm going to get a lot of stick for it, so I'm prepared for it. There is a Leicester midfielder who at one point was off to Newcastle at one point in Hamza Chowdhury, who has performed very well this season. I think if he's available, a very good young talent, someone who can progress the ball very well, someone who's very good in the defensive end as well. I think if you're looking at someone with the profiles and at the club that we kind of need, I would look at him as well. I mean, he's a good player, and he seems to have the composure to be in that team. So I would say he would be someone that I would look at as well. I don't know what people think about that, but that's my hot-ish take.
Okay, so I think everyone said all the positions they want. Well, a keeper. Okay, so
Yeah.
for me, I probably like Leno the least out of everyone here, definitely.
Yeah.
I think Leno's impact on our build up is so much so that I think he should be replaced. I think he's lucky that there are other immediate needs in the team, so that he gets away with staying possibly. So Onana looks to be available. He wouldn't be my first choice, but because in the air he's just as suspect as Leno, if not a bit less. But he's much better with his feet. It would help our build up much more. Mike Maignan was available, but he's gone to AC Milan. Donnarumma looks like he's going to Juventus. So for me, all the people I've seen right now is probably Kake from Trabzonspor. He's good in the air. He's 6'4", I think. He's good with his feet. He's commanding. He's not scared to come out. He's decent one-on-one. He's good one-on-one. So of all that I can see right now, I'd sign Ogukan Kake as the keeper from Trabzonspor. Anyone else sign a keeper?
I mean, if we're doing keepers, I think the one thing we'll probably all agree. I don't know if everyone disagrees, but Matt Ryan needs to stay. We need to re-sign Matt Ryan. I think he's done very well. In terms of another keeper, Onana's an option. Sakira is an option. If Leno's going, then we need a first choice keeper. So we're talking someone like, I would say Meslier as an option. Someone maybe, Meslier would be probably a good option as well. Onana obviously is an option, but I would say Meslier is if we can snag him, then snag him.
Okay, so I think everyone said all the signings they'd want. So if you signed all the players you wanted, how would you line up? Quickly.
So for me, it'll probably be Onana, Kieran Tierney, Gabriel, Saliba, Hakimi. Then probably it would be Partey, Bissouma, and Emil. And then Houssam Aouar, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, and Saka. That'll be probably my
Okay. Zico.
Goalkeeper Mesley for me. Left back Kieran Tierney. Left centre back Gabriel. Right centre back Saliba. Right back Hakimi. Midfield Party. That one's a bit hard. Basuma, Smith Rowe. Saka on the right. Aubameyang probably, and Awa on the left.
Okay. Z.
It's a hard one, really. I don't know if goalkeeper's situation is going to change. We need to find a buyer for Leno. So I'm going to be realistic and say Leno still stays. Leno,
That's what I think.
Leno, Kirintini, Gabriel, Saliba, Hakimi, Bissouma, Partey, Wendia, Aubameyang, and I don't even know. Who should I choose on the right? Saka or Pepe?
Saka.
Bro, don't do this.
Saka over Pepe. Don't care what other
The
people say.
answer is Bukayo Saka.
Pepe.
Go on.
And Aubameyang up front.
Wait, did you say Pepe?
He said Pepe. Of course he said Pepe.
Yeah.
Okay. Carys.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think Leonard's gonna leave this summer, unfortunately. Just more because of there's not. I'm not sure there's a quality keeper out there that we could get. Maybe there is, but I'm just not entirely sure at the moment. So it'll be Leonard and goal for now. Right back to you. Centre back, I'll go with someone that we haven't mentioned, Tapsoba, who's been rumored by the Athletic to be linked with Arsenal. He's quite good and he's progressive on the ball. Partnering him, I'd have Gabriel. Then left back Kieran Tierney. Then I'd go with a pivot of Partey and Bissouma. Then the three behind the striker, I'd go Saka. George kind of sold me, so I'll go with Awa for a bit. I'll go with Awa. And ESR, and then probably they'll be in behind Aubameyang. He needs to improve a lot next season for sure. It's more of hope rather than me feeling confident that he will improve. But Aubameyang's there to stay, so just want to get the best out of him, really.
Okay, so I'll go before George. So for me, ideally, Leno goes today, but I don't think that happens. So Leno, Tierney, Gabriel, Saliba, Hakimi, Partey, Bissouma, probably in a 4-2-3-1. Yeah, Bissouma, Saka on the right, Awa on the left, Smith Rowe on the 10, and Aubameyang up top.
Yeah, so I agree with the lads. I don't think Leno's leaving, even though I think he wants to leave. And I think we all want him to leave, but it's just a matter of us having so much business to do and so many holes to figure out that I don't think that's a possibility. I do think we need a backup keeper. It looks like Brentford, just as a little side note, they're winning 2-0. So David Raya, who was one of my cheaper options, I don't know if the scores improved, but they were winning last time I checked.
We're linked to Woodman, aren't we?
Freddie Woodman, I like him.
Yeah,
Not only as a backup.
I'd get him as backup as well, yeah.
Absolutely, he's quality, and we have a link actually with the club that we let go of. I think it was his father, Andy, earlier in the season. So honestly, with keeper, lads, I'm really not fussed. I think we do actually go Freddie Woodman because I think we want a homegrown option, and so in that backup keeper mold, and I think he'd be great. But I'm not fussed on backup keeper. I'm buying Thierry Small, and but I'm starting Kieran Tierney at left back. I'm going Gabriel. Of course, I'm going Saliba. I think we should get a pod and I can really release my views. I don't think I've actually
doing it.
talked
We're
about
gonna
him
be
on
doing
Twitter on purpose properly. I've got an
Stay
article
tuned.
and a
We're
lot of
definitely
thoughts.
going to be doing that. Definitely doing the whole podcast on Saliba.
Well, I'd like to because there's a lot to say with that player, but I'm going to shelve that to another time. And then at right back, I'm going to be controversial here and go Rayo Baku. And the big reason here is because I love Buendia. And oddly, what people I think don't realize from talking here is I think getting a Baku over Hakimi there is the difference between both Awar Buendia and only one in that position. So I'm actually getting Baku, and then I'm doing Basuma and Partey as my pivot, and then I'm getting Awar. I'm starting Emile Smith-Rowe, and Buendia's on the bench as my squad depth difference, and Saka's on the right wing, and I'm putting Aubameyang up top. And I think that completes the squad much better than if I were to buy a Hakimi for 70 and have to choose between Awar or Buendia. And the difference between Baku and Hakimi isn't as great as I think that's being reported.
So, before we end, Nom, how would you line up next season?
Nom. Or maybe not.
Okay. So
I think that's gonna finish that. I think.
Yeah. Someone quickly asked Saliba versus Tapsoba.
It's not even close.
I'll give my opinions on that quickly. I think Saliba is better. Another thing people don't realize with Tapsoba
struggles aerially significantly.
It's very bad, even though he's 6'4". I argued with someone did this yesterday. He's not that good aerially. You can bring stats. He's won maybe 51% of his duels, so something like that. Even aerially, he's been dominated by Martinelli in the past, and Martinelli was 18 at the time, I think. So him, and even this season, people blame him being bad in the air on him having to cover for a partner, which I think is so stupid. Because
I don't think we're in for a
he's going up. Same. I honestly don't think about. We keep being linked to him.
So with this whole Tapsoba thing, it's all coming from his agent. His agent's been offering him around to Europe, and it seems like Arsenal need a centre back because of David Luiz. But the fact is, William Saliba's in place. He's ready to play. They're all waiting for him to come in pre-season and show how much he's improved. And yeah, we've got a few players in the youth as well that could come in and like Mark McGuinness. Who else?
Ballard
as well. That can potentially step in the Carabao Cup if needed. We don't need a centre back right now. We're not playing in Europe. We don't need the depth as well. So
what if, let's say, Saliba gets injured? And
what if Saliba gets injured?
The other thing is it's not just sorry Z, but it's not just Holding that's there. Chambers is there as well.
I was just gonna say, I think we're fearful of Holding, but I place Chambers far ahead in what we're trying to do, and so I think I view Chambers as the backup, who's a utility defensive backup between right back and center back. So I'm actually playing Chambers at center back over Rob Holt, and I'm selling Rob. I'm really done with Rob, So Chambers I think is our backup there, which is fine for one game a week. But I hear Carys. I think long term center back is something we could look at. But Carys, just as a heads up, like Monluis is butter. Like that kid is going to be amazing. And so I think when you look at a profile wise, if you've got Saliba as your starter, and then your backup is 23, 24 in Chambers, and then your plan C is about 17. I think in squad wise, I really like that.
Okay, so another person asked the question that they want us to answer quickly. This is probably directed more to Z.
Yeah,
what do you think,
I think it matters in the sense that we might need a profile, like him to stay. But he does have a year left on his contract, and I know there has been a discussion of Arsenal offering him an extra year, but I don't think it's advanced as much as it's been touted by his agent. I think his agent wants him more, so I feel like he could just run out his contract, but I don't think he'll be offered the contract. I don't think so.
How long does he have left?
1 year.
Oh. Okay.
I think this will be his last year. I think so too. I think he'll be this. He won't be offered an extension. I think he'll just see this out.
Especially if we get that surgery in midfield El Neni won't even see a reserve game. So I think his agent has to do
The other thing is he's an example as well of people, players who are coming back from loans and be like, look, this guy's been here, he's done it. He went on loan, he came back, no one rated him. He worked his way back into the team. You can too, and he's a good.
Lads, I'm going to defend El Neni really quickly right now. The lad was like a $5 million purchase, and if I'm looking right now about El Neni and his performance this season, he's surprised even me about how he's filled in that role and actually facilitated Partey doing his best performances. So I'm really not upset with keeping him as a depth option, particularly in the dressing room and when we've had so many experienced players leave. He's one of those cultured that I think I'm happy to sit on the bench, and I don't think he's on wages that inhibit us in the future. So El Neni, I'm happy for him to run out his contract.
I've got a question. What do we think of Willock's situation for next season?
I think,
do you think
honestly, I'd bring him back possibly, but I honestly think he may be loaned out again, just because we don't have Europe, and it'd be better him playing.
It depends.
Week in, week out.
It depends. Like the situation with Willock depends on the window. If the window goes well, then Willock goes on loan. If the window goes badly, I think it's a premature conversation to have. If Willock he needs game time, and he's done extremely well at Newcastle. If it means another year at Newcastle, great. But the question is are we going to be needing him or not? If we don't need him, loan him. I don't want to sell him. Hell no.
Okay.
I'll sell anyone. Oh, not anyone. I'll sell most of our players. I'll sell Willock. Willock has got a very high floor, and he's someone that I'd want around the squad.
Well, I also kind of want to get Carys' opinion, because I think me and Carys on Twitter have been the most consistent Willock defenders. I don't know if I've seen it as much, but mate, I mean, our opinions are similar here. Why don't you take over about what you think on Willock?
Yeah, George is correct on that. I'm pretty much very ardent back of Joe Willock. And if I can give a comparison in a way, he reminds me of like Jude Bellingham, but he will get you more goals. Like, he can play in a pivot. He showed, for example, with Emery, the likes of Newcastle, Liverpool, the Burnley game where Sabah's got most of the praise, but I think Willock was almost on that too, with the way he was passing the ball around, filtering back, making those third man runs. I just feel like somebody of his profile is not somebody that you find often on the market. And I feel like, for me, he's the reason why I wouldn't get a second midfielder after Basuma. That's just my personal opinion. It's a necessity of the Berg when you have.
It depends on the midfielder as well.
Because Willock has that similar athletic profile to Berg, maybe even better if I'm being really honest. So, and then just the goals that he adds, he won't replicate the same rate that he's doing for Newcastle right now, but he will get you a decent 5-6 goals in the Premier League this season if he gets a decent amount of game time. I'm not saying to start, but just to give him some ample game time, really.
Okay.
Sorry, Chris, just to really quickly build off, I love Joe Willock. I've been a huge defendant of the lad for literally months. He's mustard. If you're suggesting Gravenberch with a straight face and you're not considering Joe Willock, I don't know what kind of bias you're looking at. You're looking at a very similar profile of player, a all-round, all-action, instinct-getting, goal-scoring midfielder that I really see shades of Yaya Toure in. And, people are going to hammer me for, but the idea that you can get that ball-carrying ability and the instinct further up the pitch to score, you don't find that often, and you don't sell that. Now, I'm actually loaning him to a more possession-based side because I want him to get a full season. I want him to reaffirm his progress, and I'm actually sending him to Southampton or Leeds. Leeds, ideally. I think he would do excellently in Leeds' system, but not because I don't want him. He's a key fixture in my plans, and especially if you want a 4-3-3 of specificity, Willock is essential for any 4-3-3 ideas, absolutely whatsoever, and even not. In a pivot, he's phenomenal. So, yeah, we're keeping Joe, and we're not entertaining ideas of him leaving.
Okay, Nom told me his team, and he wanted me to say it. This is an achievable and realistic team. It's Onana in goal, Baku at right back, Tierney at left back, Saliba right centre back, Gabriel left centre back, Partey and Bissouma in the pivot, Saka on the right, Smith Rowe on the left, Buendia in the 10, and Aubameyang up top. Okay, so I think we've gone through everything. We've gone through who we'd sign, how we'd start the season, what we do with Willock. It's been a good show, I think.
People, just to quickly add, tomorrow, today we're doing this live, but tomorrow we're doing a recording for our podcast. It's going to come out this week. It's going to be on the season review, and it's going to be released throughout the week, either Monday or Wednesday on the YouTube. We really, all of us here, really appreciate the support we've had so far. It's been really good. We're actually blown away. George messaged me this morning, saying he's actually stunned about how things are going, and us older guys were a bit surprised about how well it's doing. So thank you for the support. It's really, really appreciated, and please like, share, and subscribe to the channel because this is just the beginning.
Okay. And just quickly to shout out everybody, you see Karen's Twitter, CC_BOP2. Z's Twitter at Priv Arsenal Z. Carys' Twitter is AFC_Carys. Zico, say your Twitter.
Zico AFC.
Okay, and George's Twitter is GeorgeV_AFC, and my Twitter is Pure CKK. And to find all of us is Ball Over Passion on Twitter. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And we'll catch you guys next week.
All right, take care.